and this is just a toy spot on DC Superheroes Killer Croc. This figure comes to us from the first wave of DC Superheroes that focuses solely on the Batman characters. This series was carried over into Series 2, which focused on the Superman aspect of the characters. So you had Superman, Supergirl, there was Doomsday, and I believe there was Darkseid. We'll get into those later, but what we're looking at right now is we have Killer Croc. The packaging itself is a bright yellow with the red. It's a starburst effect, which has continued a lot through the DC release of their figures. The packaging is bright. I wouldn't say it's anything that really stands out well. I mean, there's not a lot going for it. It relies a lot on the comic, I think, to give the packaging any oomph. But it does come with the comic. It has what I thought to be one of the best comic or Batman logos of the comics. I always like the Batman cape, and then you had the Batman in the front kind of thing. On the back of the packaging, we have the other characters in the wave. So we have Batman, Scarecrow, we have Bane, and we also have Killer Croc, which of course is this guy right here. My personal favorite so far, and I have yet to open this guy, but my personal favorite so far is definitely the Scarecrow. I would say of all the ones you want to pick up, you definitely want to pick up the Scarecrow. So there we have the packaging on Mr. Croc. What we'll do is we'll open up Killer Croc, and what we'll do is we'll have a closer look at the figure itself. Points have to be given to the paint application, I think, to the figure first and foremost. They did an excellent job on the paint scheme of the figure itself. They've got a nice dark green in the shoulders, in the back, as well as in the head, and then it transitions into a nice greenish colored yellow. Definitely looks reptilian. Also, speaking of reptilian, a lot of detail was put in the sculpt of the actual figure itself. You get a lot of the bumps in the spine spikes, I guess you want to call it, in the character's back. It carries over into the head here. Also has it in the arms. A lot of scaling as well. I mean, the figure itself is sculpted really nice. So I will not take anything away for that. In the way of likeness, likeness is a bit iffy, at least with Killer Croc, because Croc has changed quite a bit in the comics. He originally started out with the flat kind of face, which resembled more like a snake. As the character progressed, and even up to the point now, the character now resembles much more a crocodile, where his face is, he's got the crocodile head going. I think, and I'm probably wrong, but I think that look of Killer Croc started to surface around the time of Hush, the Batman comic Hush line, where Jim Lee actually had redrawn the character with that sculpted Croc head. I would say this Killer Croc face reminds me a lot like the DC or the Batman animated series Killer Croc, which looked almost exactly the same as this Killer Croc. The only difference was that he was more of a whiter, almost like a bluish, grayish white. It wasn't a stark white, but it was definitely wasn't green, that's for sure. In the way of articulation, he does have some, although not as much as what the Scarecrow had. There is articulation in the head. The head does move left and right. Doesn't move up or down because it's just on a single swivel joint there. There is articulation in the shoulders. There isn't a full range just because of the way it's sculpted there, but you do get some range of movement in the arms. Surprisingly, though, there's no articulation in the shoulders or in the elbows, which I'm almost surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be molded the way that it was. Also in this arm here, you can't bend his arm, and it suffers more on this side just because his arm is posed in a certain way. There is articulation in the hands, which carries over on both sides here. There is articulation in the waist. There's also articulation in the leg, as well as the feet. The biggest downside, however, is there's no articulation in the knees, and very similar to Bane, he's pre-posed in a lunging forward kind of squatting position, which is a bit of a drawback, because it would have been nice that you had full articulation in the lower half as well, because it's not too bad aside from the elbows. It's not too bad in the upper torso area of the figure. He does have one weapon, which is a pipe. It almost looks like the peg would want to, or that the pipe would peg into something by the way that the bottom is here, but as far as I know, it doesn't peg into anything. They've sculpted the pipe in a way that it looks almost like a claw, and he can only really hold it, I guess he can hold it in both hands the way the hands are sculpted. Whoops. Just try it out here, see if we can get it in the other hand. No, the hands, well, you can hold it in the other hand, but I mean, it doesn't, it's not as secure as keeping it in this hand. Overall opinions of the figure isn't bad. It does capture the likeness of Killer Croc in the earlier comics and the animated series. I would say for your money, you'd probably, if you want a Killer Croc, you would want to invest in the Secret Files, or was it the Rogue Files of the Batman comic line, that, or of the figure line that came with a black mask. There was also a penguin, and then there was a Killer Croc. That Killer Croc has the different crocodile head, which I think looks more like what we all think of Killer Croc now. But I mean, this figure isn't too bad. It's not one of my favorites of the four. I think my favorite still is the Scarecrow, but and his foot doesn't want to stand right there. But there we have a toy spot on DC Superheroes Killer Croc, and hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.